A training session for officials and coaches. It serves a dual purpose because coaches need to know the rules, and during the course of the day, some of what I go over will be for coaches as far as strategy and things like that. I think everybody in here has taken the test before. Okay, I thought everybody had taken it. So you will not find any changes. The reason, however, we do the test over and over is very simply so that we make sure that you remember the rules year to year. We've had way too many instances where people, they get into a rut, they think they're doing it right, and then when we show them the rule book, I forgot that was there. Well, that's why we're doing the test, and that's why we do it year by year. Now, everybody understands the importance of taking the test for your team. Okay? It's real simple. Your team gets bonus points because you're here. You are here. If you serve as an official at a quiz meet, you count for 10 points for your team. So, for example, Keith, you're here. Jeremiah's team will get 10 bonus points every match when you are an official. Now, each team can get 2 officials, up to 20 bonus points for every match. So at the end of the match, if we have Concord First Assembly and they score 100 points, and let's say they're playing Christ Alive, and Christ Alive has 105 points, okay? But CFA brought 2 officials, 20 bonus points. Christ Alive only brings 1 official. You can see in this scenario, Christ Alive won the match. But when we add the bonus points, CFA won the match. Is that fair? Absolutely it is. We cannot conduct the matches without you. We need officials. We have to have officials. And this is the method that we use to make sure that each church brings officials. And does this happen? Every year. Every year something like this will happen. A match might end up tied that wasn't tied before. A match might end up completely different score. But it happens every year. Personally, I love it when it happens at my church. When we lose a match, you know, if this would be reversed, I like it when we lose because then I can go back to the parents and say, okay, Keith, now I want you to see, you know, we scored 105. The kids did their job, but here's the adults' job, and we blew it. We lost by 5 points when the kids actually won a match. And then the parents all of a sudden, oh, okay. Now, in addition to 20 bonus points per team, at the October and November meets, you actually get an additional 5 points because you're here today. If at least one person from your church is here today, we have, what, 4 different churches represented. 1, 2, 3, 4 churches. Because you're here today, you receive an additional 5 bonus points in addition to whatever. So if you bring 2 officials, you bump up to 25 points in October and November. Now, at the end, once we get into January, the bonus is removed. But for the beginning of the year, so that's why it's important. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the test page by page, question by question. The first few pages are actually pretty simple. Each of you have taken the test before. You could probably get through about the first 3 pages without much confusion. But let me remind you, if you have any questions over the course of time, please stop me. If you've seen a circumstance that you taking the test kind of reminds you of something, stop me. If I don't answer your questions, then I failed to do what I'm trying to do today. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go through about the first 4 pages of the test. We'll take about a 5-10 minute break. We'll come back and do the scorekeeping part, and then we'll be done. We'll all be on our way for the rest of the day. Okay? Now, just real quick, now that you're taking the test, what you have in your hand will become the answer key. So you can go back up to Agape Faith. You have the answer key. You can train your people, the rest of the people that will be officials. Jody, you as well. Jasper, myself, Keith, you don't have to worry about it because I'll take care of training our officials here. But that way you have the answer key. And if you have questions, please feel free to come back to me because on my answer key, I have the page numbers for every single question in the test. So I can find really quick every circumstance where the rule book has it all. Okay? So you have the 2012 rules, and it should be September 2012 That's what's on the website now, but you won't have a lot of major problems with it July 2012. A couple of very small things. So without further ado, we're going to start. And like I said, we're going to go through it really fast unless you stop me and have questions for about the first 3 pages, okay? Number 1, how much time do teams get prior to an overtime period? This is response time. How much time do teams get prior to an overtime period?
5 minutes.
No, 5 minutes is way too much. We're not going to give them that much time. See, he at least tried, folks. Somebody else, help me out. Jody, I said I'd pick on you. Jody, how much time do they get between from the calling of a overtime match? 30 seconds is not correct either. Wow, you guys have taken the test before and nobody gets it. The correct answer is B, 60 seconds. It's in the rule book. If you want to find it, page 13 and page 19. Put a note by there since some of you don't know.
When does that 5-minute timer start?
The 5-minute timer, we'll get to that when we get to that question here in just a minute.
The reason I ask that is because I've seen the scorekeepers take 5 minutes to do what they need to do.
Okay, which is why we take the test every year, and I want to make sure everybody understands it. The correct answer is B, 60 seconds. What that is, Quizmaster declares there's a tie. The teams have 1 minute where they can confer and make substitutions before the overtime begins. Okay, but we just want to keep the match moving, only 60 seconds. 30 seconds might be a little brief. That's just about enough time for a timeout. We're giving them a little more time. All right, next one. Time to complete an answer. Child has buzzed in. Green 1. How long do they get?
30 seconds.
The answer is 30 seconds. You can put C or D. Doesn't matter because they're both the same. Okay. Now, coach calls a timeout in the middle of the match. Time, please. How much time does the coach get? 30 seconds. So say it out loud. Be bold, Jody. Okay, 30 seconds. So again, it's either C or D, whichever one you didn't use before. Okay, now, question is asked. What do we mean when we speak of the Antichrist? How much time do I go before I call time and the question is voided and we move to the next one? 5 seconds. Final one. Time to get to a match after the previous match is concluded. Well, process of elimination. That's 5 minutes. Nobody is timing this. There is nobody in the hallway with a stopwatch going, okay, they finished. We're not going to do that. What we're doing, though, is we're just trying to light a fire under the coaches. The rule book used to say 15 minutes, and we had teams that used to take 10 and 15 minutes every match. And the day, which would normally be a 4-hour day, turned into a 5- and 6-hour day. Unnecessarily. They wanted to have a Holy Ghost meeting in the hallway after every round. And God bless them, I'm all for Holy Ghost meetings, but there is a season for every activity under heaven. And that's just not the time or place. Okay? Take a minute and pray, get a drink of water, let them go to the bathroom, but you only need 5 minutes. And if you take 6 minutes, we're not going to stop, we're not going to get on your case. Officials' responsibilities. This part of the test, you could probably figure it out even if you were never seen JBQ before and you walked in here cold. Who would officially record all quizzer and team points from the list on the right? Scorekeeper. Wow, that's hard. Who calls time distinctly and clearly? The timekeeper. It's getting harder. Who meets with the team for prayer, study, and practice? Head coach. Who vote independently on judges' rulings? Judges. Okay, I put the answer right there. And finally, who has general oversight of the match? The quiz master. Okay, now, definitions. This one you probably can't get without having some experience with JBQ. What do we call it when they interrupt the introductory remarks? Real quick, what are the introductory remarks? Question. Question number 14 for 20 points. Quotation question. Those are all introductory remarks. What do we do when a child interrupts? Question. Question number 14 for 20. Oops. There we go. There we go. They interrupt the introductory remarks. We call that a pre-response foul. It is indeed a foul. The calling of question announces that the question is live, and if a child interrupts, it is a 5-point pre-response foul. You assess the foul, reread the question for both teams, and just move forward. And yes, the question can be interrupted because it's being read for both teams. Next one.
What if they interrupt with a point of order in that? Is that different? Is that
say that question again?
If they interrupt the question with a point of order?
If it's a valid point of order, for example, okay, let's say tell me if I've got this right, Keith. Okay, lights on, and I go, question number 17.
Point of order.
I've already started the question, right?
Right.
Okay, so I've got the right, okay. Is that a foul? No, that is not a foul because you are attempting to correct a procedural error. Okay, so no, that is not a foul because, or for example, let's say Stacy knows that she's already quizzed out. She's gotten 6 right, and nobody has officially recognized it. Okay?
I simply got confused because that happened in our testing last week, and that was interrupting the interrupted remarks. But you're talking about interrupting with an answer or something like that.
We're trying to interrupt the question or whatever. Right. Okay, so that's the point. So point of order is not a foul. Okay, question. Next one is 2 quizzers conferring without asking for a timeout. That is a team foul. Team foul. Okay, the next one. First word distinguishing a question from another. Key word. How many books? Well, there's 3 questions that start that way. How many books are there? Now there's only one question. The word there in that question is the key word. How many books are in the Old? How many books are in the New? How many books are there in the Bible? Next question. An attempt to correct a procedural error. That is a point of order. Quizzers in the match illegally. They've quizzed out forward or backwards. The light has been left on. Okay? And the final one of the definitions. What do we call it when a child buzzes in before the question is completed? That is an interrupted question. All right, let's turn the page. My favorite page on the test, that accountant side of me comes out. JBQ by the numbers. Every answer is a number. Let's just start going. How many bonus points does a quizzer get for answering 6 correct in a match? 10. Quiz out. Bonus. Congratulations. Next question. How many points does a quizzer get for listing 10 of the apostles in 30 seconds? It's a 30-point question. Who are the 12 apostles of Jesus? Minus 15, minus 15. I hear those whispers. Negative 15, minus 15 is the correct response. They have given most of the correct answers. It is irrelevant. An answer is either correct or incorrect. And you always lose half the value of the question. So a 30-point question answered incorrectly or incompletely in the 30-second time limit they have is worth minus 15 points. All right, now, next question. How many 20-point questions are in a regulation JBQ match? The correct answer is 7. Now, folks, make sure you understand. North Carolina and other places, we have 10s, 20s, and 30s every match. Everybody got this? In an experienced league match, we have 10, 7, and 3. 10 10s, 7 20s, 3 30s. Okay? We have also in North Carolina a novice league. The novice league actually has 12 10s, 8 20s, and no 30s. Okay? But this test is written for the general regular rules. So here is the correct answer, 7. All right, next. How many points does a team get for a team or quizzer foul? The correct answer is minus 5. Fouls are always minus 5. Every situation. Okay, the next one. How many requests for judges' ruling can a coach make in a match? The correct answer is 2, Jody. It's correct. You can only make 2. Even if the match goes into overtime, you are limited to 2 requests for judges' rulings. If you feel the urge to make a 3rd request for a judge's ruling, you are not allowed to. If you call for it, it is an automatic foul, and automatically they will not listen to your request for judge's ruling. However, if you are right, you may want to talk to the quiz coordinator, Jasper, and say, hey, you got a quizmaster that's making a lot of mistakes. That's where people are not taking the test. So that's what you can do, but you can only make 2 requests for judges' rulings. How many incorrect responses must a quizzer give to quiz out backwards? The answer is 3. 3 incorrect responses. Please note, 3 incorrect responses is a quiz out. 3 fouls in a match is a quiz out. But you do not combine the two. If a child gets 2 incorrect responses and a foul, that is not a quiz out. 2 and 1 do make 3, but you do not combine fouls and incorrect responses. I've seen people try to do that before. It doesn't work that way. I have seen kids quiz out backwards on fouls before. I've seen it one time, but I've seen it happen. Next one. How many timeouts can a team take in a match that goes overtime? Wait, timeout. Oh, I thought you had a question on the previous one, sorry. Okay, how many timeouts can a team take in a match that goes overtime?
Is it 4?
Is it 4? Okay, at the beginning of the match, you are given 3 timeouts that you can take at your pleasure, whenever you want to. If a match goes overtime, you are given 1 additional timeout. So that means a total of 4 timeouts you can call for match. Now, the 3 timeouts that you get in regulation, let's say you only use 2 of them. That extra one does carry over to overtime, so you would have 2 timeouts in overtime. The timeouts carry over. Judges' rulings carry over, but you do not get an additional judge's ruling. Okay, everybody got it? Good. Makes it real easy. Next one. How many seconds does a team have to prepare and present a request for judges' rulings? Correct answer is 30 seconds. That's all they get. Now, to do judges' rulings, I'm going to cover that separately on the next page. So if you have questions relating to judges' rulings, let's hold it till we get to the next page, and we'll discuss that a little bit more in detail. Okay, next. How many 30-point questions are in a match?
30.
Yeah, I had it up here a little bit ago. 3 30s in a regular JBQ match. How many total questions are there in a regular JBQ match? Game of 20 questions. How many quizzers per team can call timeout during the match? The answer is 1. The captain of the team is the only quizzer that can call for timeouts. Couple things about that. Number 1, you do not have to have a captain on your team. It is not a requirement. It is not mandatory. Number 2, let's say that Keith here is the captain of my team but has not informed the quizmaster or any of the judges that he's the captain. If he calls a timeout, it is automatically assumed he is the captain and he can call that timeout. Now, if Jody tries to call a timeout on the same team later in the match, I'm going to call a foul on Jody. Okay? But even though he has not announced himself as the captain, if he calls for a timeout, I'm going to assume he is timeout granted, as long as everything's followed the correct procedure. Okay? But you are not required to have a timeout. Personal strategy. I do not have captains for my teams very often. Even in the experienced league, I would say in my 17 years at this church, maybe half of my teams have had a captain. I'm looking for something very specific with my captains. They have to know their material, they have to know JBQ rules, they have to know the coach's strategy. And if I've got a child, or I should add a 4th thing, they have to be recognized as a leader on that team by the other kids on the team. The other kids on the team have to look up to that person. And if all 4 of those factors are present, then I would consider making that quizzer a captain. For example, Jeremiah's team this year, there will not be a captain on that team. Not this year. Not going to happen. The other team that I have, we might have a captain. We'll see. Not sure. Moving on. How many questions are in an overtime period? We've gone through 20 questions. The score is tied. Let's say it's tied at 150 to 150. We're tied. How many questions now come in overtime? Remember, this is regular Experience League JBQ. The answer is 3. Okay? You're going to do 3 questions overtime. You're going to do a 10, a 20, and a 30, and according to the rules, in some order. You do not have to go this order. You can do 30 first, 20 first, it doesn't matter. Okay? But you have to ask 3 questions, 1 of each point value. That is overtime. Okay? Moving on. How many points does a child get for answering a 20-point question incorrectly? Minus 10. Half the value of the question is subtracted from their score if they're incorrect. Okay, now the next question. You'll see it's a 4-part answer. So let's go over the entire question and then let's answer each individual portion and then we'll come up with the final total. How many individuals maximum can there possibly be on a JBQ team? Now, we have quizzers, we have the head coach, and then we have the assistant coaches. Okay? How many quizzers can be on a team roster at any one given time?
8.
The correct answer is 8. At no time can you have more than 8 kids on your roster. Now, in North Carolina rules, when you submit a roster at the November meet, you are locked into those 8 kids through the February meet. You can't have 8 in November and one of them not come in January and you add another kid to that team. You can't do that. You are locked into these 8 kids for November through January. 3 matches, no changes. Now, have there ever been exceptions to that? Of course there have. We work with people. We realize that situations can make some things happen. But as a general rule, you're locked into those 8 kids. If you put a roster of 5 kids, you're locked into a roster of 5 kids. Okay? How many head coaches can you have on a team? Merely 1. Otherwise, you have a bunch of assistants, and that's the next question. So you have 1 head coach. 1 person's in charge, but important note to keep in mind, the head coach can change from match to match. You might be the head coach first match, Stacy. There's nothing to prevent Belinda from being the head coach in the next match. You can't change in the middle of a match, however, but you can change from match to match. So Stacy's the head coach for first round, Belinda's the coach for second round. That's fine. So how many assistant coaches can a team have?
2.
Correct answer is 2. Okay, that's the maximum number of assistant coaches you can have. Now, spectators, God bless them, we love spectators. Please sit in the back and keep your mouth shut. That's all we ask. Okay? So, how many total people can be on a JBQ team? The correct answer is 11. Everybody else is a spectator. We love spectators. We're going to keep letting them come, but they are not on the team. Okay, let's go. All right, now, earlier we spoke of overtime. And the overtime is a 10, a 20, and a 30. Well, let's say one team gets the 10 and the 20, the other team gets the 30. We're still tied after overtime. Now we go into what's called sudden death. How many points are the questions worth in sudden death overtime? Correct answer is 20. So, we've already done 20 questions. Here's 21. We'll just do it out of order. 22, 23. Okay? And after 23 questions, we're tied. Now we go to sudden death. And this happens relatively frequently, a few times every year. The questions are worth 20 points until one team gets one right or one team gets one wrong. Now, you might keep going 24, 25, 26, 27. Some of you have probably heard the story. I don't know how often I tell it. In a team quiz match years ago when I was coaching team quiz, they have a similar rule, sudden death, 20-point questions. Well, at the end of 20 questions, it was both teams were not very good. The score was like 25 to 25. It was really, they weren't very good. Okay, overtime, 10-point question, unanswered. 20-point question, unanswered. 30-point question, unanswered. So now we go to sudden death. Question number 24, unanswered. Question 25, unanswered. Question 26, unanswered. Question 27, unanswered. Question 28. One of the boys on my team, David Gobelt, hit his buzzer and said, I have no idea what the answer is, but I'm hungry, let's go to lunch. And they lost the match.
Wow.
They got negative 10. So, true story, and I still remember it. So, anyways, moving on. What is the maximum number of points that one quizzer can score in a match without overtime? Okay, because Bethany has done that so many times. Let's start here. How many 30-point questions are there in a regular JBQ match? 3. Okay, so we have 3 questions. So if you're going to get the maximum number, you have to answer all 3 30s. Okay, now how many questions do you have to answer to get a quiz out? 6. So we've got to answer 3 more questions of the next highest point value. Everybody with me so far? Okay, so if you can answer 3 30s, you're going to get 90 points. Everybody see the math? Okay, 3 20s will result in another 60 points. Good? Okay, now we're going to add these together. So the correct answer is 150, right? Why? Why is that wrong?
10 bonus points.
Bing! Very good. 10 bonus points. So the correct answer is 160. That is the most you can score in a match without going to overtime. Now, if we go into overtime, what's the most points that a kid can score? Okay, let's do this. Regular match. Okay, regular match. Kid answers all 3 30s and 2 of the 20s. Everybody see it? So at the end of regulation, this child has scored 130. Now in overtime, they get the 30-point question. Then they get their 10 bonus points. The most points that one child can get in a match is 170 if it goes into overtime. They get all 3 30s in regulation, 2 20s, then they get the 30 in overtime, 10 bonus points. And yes, I have seen that happen one time at the National Festival. I still have the score sheet. So 170 is possible. Okay, next one. We already learned a while ago that a child gets 10 bonus points, even in this past question, for quizzing out forward, 6 correct. How many points are deducted from a child's score for quizzing out backwards? They've gotten 3 incorrect. How many points do we penalize them? None. 0. The correct answer is 0. They've already gotten 3 incorrect, 3 negatives to their score. We are not going to impose an additional penalty on them. I can imagine how many tears would flow if they quizzed out backwards and then were given an additional 10 points off for doing it. Okay? So the answer is 0. No additional bonus points for quizzing out backwards. Okay, next one. A relatively recent rule within the last 10 years or so. What is the number of 30-point questions minimum that must be read in either half of the match? If a match is 20 questions, here's the breakdown. The first half, the second half. How many 30-point questions have to be read in each half of the match? Every match has to have either 1 or 2 30s in each half. That is guaranteed. If you have 1 in the first half, you'll have 2 in the second. If you have 2 in the first half, you'll have 1 in the second. But there has to be 1 30-point question in either half of the match. Now, if you get down to question number 10 and you've heard no 30-point questions, what do you know? Question number 10 will be a 30-point question. If it is not, somehow, if it is not a 30-point question, what would you as a coach do? Bingo. Perfect. You would call a point of order. Hey, point of order, that's a violation of the rules. Okay? You're trying to correct a procedural error. Hey, we haven't had a 30 yet, and this is the halfway point of the match. This one has to be a 30. Okay? So very good, Stacy. All right, let's keep going. What is the maximum number of quizzers who can quiz for one team at one time in a match? The answer is 4. Most JBQ boxes have 4 lights and 4 paddles. Now you can buy them with 5 on each side. Team quiz, they only have 3 at a time. But in JBQ, the most you can have at one time is 4. You can have 8 kids on the roster. We wrote that out earlier. 4 of them will be sitting on the bench. Now that's boring. That's why I don't like to have teams of 8 people. But that's what you can do, 4 at a time. Next one. What is the number of officials that vote on a judge's ruling? Oh, be bold. Say it out loud, Jody. 3. It is 3. 3 officials. If you had 2, you're going to have a split vote. How do you break it? If you had 4, split vote. If you had 5, you got way too many people. That's just too much. Okay, so the answer is 3 in a perfect world. Okay, there have been times I have been a quizmaster at a JBQ match, and I have been a quizmaster and 0 other officials, including a scorekeeper. That has happened before. Okay, that's not the optimum performance, but it has happened. Well, if I'm the only judge, I'm the only one voting. If I get a scorekeeper, I'm still the only one voting because the scorekeeper is not going to keep up with the questions. We need officials. We need you. You make JBQ run. All right, next one. What is the maximum number of points that one team can get in a match, including quiz outs, but not counting points for officials? Instead of trying to figure it out, let's do it together. There are, as we have decided numerous times here, 3 different point values of questions. We have 10 10s, 7 20s, and 3 30s. Everybody follow so far? The math is pretty simple. We'll have 100, 140, and 90. Now, the math adds up to 330 points. That's the most you can get in one match, right? Again, no. Wrong. Why? Quiz outs. How many quiz outs can one team get in a match knowing that there are 20 questions? What's the most number of kids that can quiz out? 3. You get 3 kids who answer 6 questions correctly. That'll be 18. The 4th kid gets the other 2, or if you have substitutes, could be 1 and 1, whatever. So 3 quiz outs, 30 bonus points. You could score 360 points in a JBQ match. And yes, I have a score sheet from JBQ Regionals. Final score, 360 for Ocala, Florida, 0 for the team from Georgia. It has happened. Not very often, but it can. Okay, now the final question may seem to be a bit redundant from the one previous. How many judges are involved in a JBQ match? We already had the question, how many officials vote on judges' rulings? How many judges are there in a JBQ match? 3. Okay. The reason this is on the test, this issue has come up before at some of the higher levels of competition. Some districts have their own rules, which are perfectly fine if you want to do certain things. The bonus points, for example, that we do in North Carolina, that's a North Carolina rule. Not every district does it that way. Nothing wrong with that. But when we get to the higher levels of competition, there has to be some uniformity. There are 3 officials in every match, 3 judges, and here's how it breaks down. You have a quizmaster judge. That's 1 judge. Next, you have a timekeeper judge. That's next. The final judge is the scorekeeper judge. 1, 2, 3. 3 officials, and all 3 of them are judges. And in the case, as we mentioned earlier, of a judge's ruling, these 3 people are going to vote on the judge's ruling. Now, if both teams bring both officials, we have 4 officials in the room. So what we do is we take the job away from that judge, and we have a separate scorekeeper. So this person is only the judge. Now, what I would do as a quizmaster, I would make that person responsible for clearing the button, the clear judge. Some people would even use him as a call judge. Make that judge be the one to call the kid. Green 1, red 3, whatever the case might be.